Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock. I would like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting to order. Please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C on the agenda tonight is the roll call of city council members. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Beaton? Here. Councilmember Brocksmith?
Here.
Councilmember Correas?
Here.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Tesoro?
Here.
Councilmember Vanderstoep?
Here.
All right, the adoption of tonight's council meeting agenda. If council's okay with the agenda as presented tonight, I would invite a motion to adopt it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Tercero, a second by Councilmember Hudson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes, and the agenda is adopted. So the next item is community comments. And before we get to community comments, some of you are here for an agenda item, a closed record public hearing that'll take place later. Some of you may be here in support of one of the other items on the agenda or another topic. Now is the time for you to talk if it is for anything other than the closed record public hearing. So if anyone present in council chambers here tonight would like to address council, ask you to come forward, introduce yourself, just state your name and city of residence, and then limit comments to about 3 minutes or so. And yeah, I'd just open that invitation now for you.
Here they go.
It's a race.
You don't let me know how I'm doing because I don't have a written thing. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants.
All right.
Pretend we're at the kitchen table. I'm Maran Meyers, and good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I'm Maran Meyers, and I'm president of the Cedar Heights HOA. And tonight you had a meeting, I missed it, the one on stormwater presentation, and I did read the draft copy. And one thing I noticed was it has the action plan to clean up Trumpeter Creek. Well, look, she has pictures. Our storm pond and the drainage swale drain into Thunderbird Creek, which rolls down the hill to Trumpeter Creek. And when I looked at the results of the water quality reports for Trumpeter Creek, and the worst one is always every year, number 5, down at the bottom of division with Trumpeter Creek. And Thunderbird Creek comes in just before there. And I've been talking about our failed biofiltration swale. What's so great about a biofiltration swale? It has sloped sides and a bottom and the grass. And the grass is genius because you just mow it and it filters out the chemicals. You mow the tops off, you sweep them up, and it re-comes up again. What do we have now? It hasn't been maintained since 2011, and it looks like this. And you say, well, so what? It's a creek and the water's running through it. Big deal. Well, in 2009, it was put in, and this was what, 2007, excuse me. And then 2009, this is what it looked like. We had the south end, the uphill end, with the inlet coming down. And this is our, I'm sick. This is our split rail fence and a trail. Today, this is the inlet pipe at the south end, and you can barely see it. We have growth here and trees, and it's all eroding. We now have the swale was supposed to come up like this to the top of the berm where we have our HOA trail. But now it's like this. It's eroding. The city doesn't want to take responsibility for the berm, which it is responsible for. They're going to have to put sandbags in there, something, until they can do something permanent, because we're not going to fix it. We don't dare touch the city's responsibility. That's the first thing. Number 2, what is our facility? As I said at the meeting, it's a regional one. It serves not just Cedar Heights, but Cedar Heights West, Montreux, and Woodside. All of this stormwater runoff goes into that stormwater, that swale. You can't see it, but this is our storm pond, and this is our swale, and all of the lines from Montreux, Woodside, and Cedar Heights West flow into this drainage swale into that pond. Well, what's the big deal there? The pond filters out pollution by it settling when the water flow stops to the bottom. But that's all it can do. A drainage swale collects and cleans all the sediment out and all of the chemicals. And right now, there is no grass, it is gone, there's no filtration. Our bioswale was designed by John Ravnick, and it matches exactly what the stormwater manual says one should be. It has a trapezoidal shape, it has grass. This is the storm manual telling you this is the best shape because it has sides for maintenance. You're supposed to be able to mow it, and the bottom stays clear. And this was our notes in our plat document that tag that the storm pond and drainage easement to the city of Mount Vernon. The drainage easement contains the drainage swale. Storm pond and drainage easements, as shown here on our document, are hereby granted to the city of Mount Vernon to construct, maintain, replace. Now, we're not talking maintenance anymore. The grass is all gone. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be stripped out, the trees. If you have to have trees roots bigger than a certain amount, they have to be dug out. You're gonna have to hire a city engineer, a civil engineer, and probably have someone like Trico come in and fix it. The banks need to be rebuilt. Yeah, because the slopes are all gone, and it needs to have the regrassed and the sod put in. So, okay, and the point of this is, because of what you want to do with Trumpeter Creek, you're looking for something to help clean it up. You're looking at a lot of projects. Well, the city had a 1,000-foot-long bioswale that was treating pollution, and one of the things that comes off of this is 110 acres. 110 acres with, let me get my picture here. 545 homes, 110 acres of water, storm water now, just simply running into a creek. No filtration, it's eroding it out. And one of the worst things that comes off the road, besides the fertilizer from lawns and car stuff, is the tire dust. Tire dust contains, the blames here, something like PD666, which is fatal to coho salmon. None of that is happening. None of that is happening for 545 homes, 110 acres worth of roadside, which is now simply dumping into a creek, eroding the banks of our bioswale. It needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Marian. I'm impressed with how you handled all those visuals. That was really good. Anyone else that would like to give public comment tonight?
Good evening, council members. We don't have any visuals or anything. I'm Jennifer Walton. This is my husband, Bob Walton, and we live in Mount Vernon. And we're here tonight in support of the emergency ordinance that will allow for more flexibility with building accessory dwelling units in town. We have had an interest for a couple of years in building an accessory dwelling unit in our backyard. It started when my mother indicated that she might want to come live with us, but she would kind of prefer to have her own space, not living in the same house as us, but very close proximity. And then we have an adult son who is living in a studio apartment that is way overpriced, and they're looking for a new place to live. It's not the best condition for them anymore, and they might need to come live with us. And we have grandchildren that live in Tennessee. I don't know why they moved there. But our kids want to move back and be close to us. And when they heard that we were considering an accessory dwelling unit, they got very excited and said, "Oh, we want to live in your backyard." So we wouldn't mind having the grandchildren so close. We're not so sure about the rest of them. But anyhow, we had been looking at some plans, and we found something that we kind of liked that was a 2-story accessory dwelling unit. And we have a spot in our backyard that seemed like it would be the perfect spot and kind of unobtrusive to our neighbors. We've got cedar trees around and things like that, and a house that's quite high behind us. And then when we started investigating and came to talk to the city to see what the rules were, we discovered that we wouldn't be able to do that because we have a single-story home, and you could do two-story if it was attached but not detached. So that kind of shot down our plans because we don't want to occupy a big footprint in our backyard. We talked to a contractor who's here tonight too to just sort of get some ideas, and he gave us some input. He was trying to investigate what the options were. And now we had gone to speak with Mayor Donovan earlier this year, and now this ordinance is coming up on your agenda, and we're very excited about that. We are hoping to be able to start to build something if we can get all the permits and stuff through, and then have our kids come live with us so we can be close to our 3-month and 3-year-old grandchildren. So, and their little dog.
It's really, yeah, it's really not a selfish request. I think it's a win-win situation. I think not only for, the residents of Mount Vernon, but as well as, for the city as well, for the taxable increases and for permitting as well. So I'm preaching to the choir, sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else for public comment?
Nice to see some familiar faces here. Good evening. My name is Steve Fox, and I'm the director of Skagit Valley Neighbors in Need Food Bank. Thank you for a little bit of time to talk about our building, its history, and its need. This is my 10th year as the director of Neighbors in Need, and I'm sure all of you have witnessed changes going on around the food bank during that period of time. We've managed to install concrete around the building. We've solar panels, a gable roof. We're also the proud owners of that building. It's a post-World War II CMU block building, so it's a sturdy old building. We've gotten a lot of this done through grants through PSE or WSDA. The food bank itself actually paid for the roof because we needed it so badly. And I believe that this kind of demonstrates to the city and to our clients is the fact that we intend on being around for an extended period of time. We are the oldest food bank in Skagit County. We've been around for 52 years. The reason I'm here is we've submitted a request from the Community Block Development Grant to replace our original windows that came with the building that was built in 1947. They're aluminum single-pane windows. It's lovely having the solar panels up there, but it doesn't do much good as far as keeping your power bills down if all the power's going out the windows. We just need to get some new windows in. We're also working with PSE to get some new lighting in. We're just always looking for ways to improve our efficiency, to be able to get more and more food out to people. And again, it sends a message. Every time we do something with our building, we send a message that we're still here, we're going to be here, so you don't have to worry about that end of it. We're also looking for ways to store the food we need for our clients because the numbers just keep going up. A year ago at this time, we were feeding 350 people. Now we're feeding between 550 and 600 every week. We've been working with state representatives, Dave Paul and Clive Shavers, to obtain funding through the capital budget for the building, that little bitty yellow ugly building to our immediate north, which is owned by the Bailey Family Trust. And their generosity is being exhibited by, if we can put the building up, they will lease it to us for 10 years for $1 a year. So that gives us more access to store more food. We weren't able to get it through the budget committee this year. It was a short session, but Representative Paul has said that he's more than happy to sponsor us again this upcoming session. So I would appreciate it if you would take our consideration seriously. We really need those windows. And then I'd be remiss, given our location, if I didn't thank our new mayor, Peter Donovan, and the Mount Vernon Police Department for their support and assistance in trying to control the speed going through on 2nd Avenue. We were able to have an electronic speed sign there for a period of time, which brought the speeds down. And then I spoke with, pardon me, Sergeant Aaron Cohen yesterday, and we're looking at some other options, but we really appreciate all the help we've been getting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. So, Council, I made a rookie mistake earlier when I opened up the community comments and failed to mention that there's an open record public hearing tonight for the CDBG action plan, item 6C. And so Mr. Fox spoke to that for your consideration for those requests. So I would say to anyone else here who's here to speak for the open record public hearing for item 6C, the CDBG annual action plan, you'll get a shot soon. but not during community comments, so I'm sorry I failed to mention that. Any other community comments about anything other than our closed record public hearing and our open record public hearing?
Good evening, Mayor Donovan and council members. My name is Richard Boyer. I live at 310 South 9th in Mount Vernon. Excuse me. I used to be a regular at these meetings until health issues kind of got in my way. And I understand that as a policy, Mike, oh, by the way, congratulations to you new members of the council who I have not met yet on your election to that position. And I understand that the policy is not to interact with people here at the podium. I hope that you'll relax that for just a moment tonight, because I just have a question to ask and I would like to confirm something. But I also want to urge you to revisit that policy. People make the effort to come to these meetings so they can interact with you as council members. And I think they ought to have the opportunity to do that and get responses from you when they make the effort to come to this meeting. It may not be the most convenient thing for them, but when they do it, I think they ought to have the right to get an answer from you for questions. Now, if you'll relax that rule for just a moment, I want to confirm that, Mary, you told me that there's a town hall meeting, and is that on the 26th?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Boyer, that's
The
correct.
26th, is that going to be at
Fire Station 3.
Hillcrest Lodge?
Fire Station 3.
Fire Station 3. Is that the one that's over on, it
It's
used to be
on-
the park?
No, it's on Division.
Is that the one
By
on the
Harriet
end of?
Rowley, on the direction by Harriet Rowley.
Okay. Okay, the other thing I want to do now is find out if the other, and I apologize, I should know this, what district are you?
I'm Ward 3.
Yes, okay. Are the other districts planning any town hall meetings?
I don't believe there are any scheduled.
There is a schedule?
I don't believe there are any other
Okay.
town halls scheduled.
Okay, if there's none scheduled, I'm going to urge you emphatically to set some up so that the citizens can come and converse with you and talk to you about problems they have, ideas, things like that. And would assume it would go online, if they are scheduled, they would go online as for a notice of those. Would that be correct, Mayor?
Those will be on the website if they,
Okay.
if they get scheduled.
Okay, well, that's it, that, I'm through, but I would just urge the other districts to set up some town hall meetings so people can come and have direct input with you and get answers back from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer.
Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Ed Johnson, I live down in downtown Mount Vernon, President Hotel. And I'll second everything he had just said, because I was also interested in a town hall meeting. I had seen something on the website, but I think that may have been from a couple of years ago, where Ward 2 or 3 actually had a meeting. But any event, so Ward 1 is where I'm at, and I would hope that people could be easily accessible, especially the business community and what's been going on. I think it's vital, so I encourage that as well. I didn't come here to speak to that specifically, but I'm very concerned. I am a computer science major. I started using computers in 1977. Since then, I've used hundreds of different programs, built different computers myself, had my own business for a bit, and I have always heard that computers and tech was evil. Well, dang it, it is. There is somebody always out there trying to take advantage of it, and they do. Right now, my lawyer told me never to give my iris or my thumbprint, and the Bank of America demanded my thumbprint, so that's gone. But now is voice. Every time you speak into that device, you are subject to identity theft, meaning they have now got your voice. So I'm very concerned because there's no apparent protections for us in this country. And when I talk to somebody overseas, and I can tell they're overseas, I was talking to Molina, and I asked, where are you located? He goes, well, we're not permitted to tell you, so it's top secret. I had a conversation with Xfinity, ACP problem. I'm sick and tired of them. They kept pawning me off to other countries. So I'm now talking to Honduras about this ongoing problem. They said, yeah, we should escalate it. So now I'm talking to the Philippines. This is all in a 15-minute conversation, by the way. So 3 minutes later, I'm talking to the Philippines. Philippines looks into it, goes, oh yeah, you should talk to our ACP department in New York. Is it resolved? What do you think? No. So I've had enough of them too. So that just leads me to identity theft again. Apparently people don't really understand what that is. Anytime, every time you expose your critical personal info, you're subject to identity theft. It's already too late for us. 3 generations from now. So I don't want to go too far into this, but in the military, when they do, clearance background checks and stuff, the most extensive one goes back 4 generations. Just setting you up there because in 1980, that's what they did to me. All right, that said, so I talked about identity theft. Tulips, we got those coming on, and having been here for 30 some odd, too many years, we need buses to take these folks out there with toilets and reduce, if we get a bus out there, it's got 70 seats in it and they're full, that's, I don't know how many cars less, but, if we can get a bunch of them, and I don't know how to go about we have the SCAT system here, maybe have to get the shuttle service for airporter, I don't know. But I'd like to hear some dialogue about that, because it's gonna get crazy again, and it's not less people coming, there's a whole lot more. All right, and, well, I was told to keep it short. In fact, he's got a gun, so I'll just keep it short. All right, freedom of speech, but we should be able to speak when and have dialogue.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Wright with Cumberland Construction, and I came here to support Bob and Jen Walton, and I guess just to reiterate the importance of adopting this new law. Technically, it's not supposed to go into effect until December of 2025, when it will be mandatory. And I guess just looking into the future with their concerns, we're kind of experiencing the same thing. So, and especially with PSC coming out with banning natural gas, potentially, and which they're estimating would add an additional $52,000 to convert to electric. There's the new building codes, along with WUI, which is the fire codes that are coming from California. And they're anticipating that adding an additional $150,000 to a new build home. So I guess we are just here to support them and hope that you guys truly consider that and help make that a reality for us. So, yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any other public comments this evening? All right, move on to item 4, the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes council meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, and claims. Would council like to move adoption of tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Beaton, a second by Councilmember Molinar. Any discussion for the consent agenda? Good with that. All in favor of passing the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, consent agenda passes. And we will move to reports. We have our Public Works and Library report from Councilmember Gary Molinar. Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. We opened up the Public Works and Library Committee tonight at 6 o'clock after the approval of the February 14th minutes. First up, we had Library Director Isaac Huffman give us an update on the Library Commons project. We're putting siding and doors in this, I don't know, some of you probably saw the big stairwell going down with into the building this past week. The library now has its own EV car, and we've gotten a grant to have electricity put in down at City Hall, and obviously our new library will have that too. The foundation had Timothy Egan, and there was a great response. McIntyre was full, and we raised a lot of donations, and it was just a really good event. May 11th will be Dia Children's Book Day at Hillcrest Park. Also, we've been doing a lot of outreach at the library. There's been making soaps, tote bags, microbiotics were made at the Venture Boys and Girls Clubs. And so there's a lot of neat stuff coming up, and I know Isaac's very excited about getting into the new library, which will probably be at the beginning around of summer. And next we had our program coordinator division, Blaine Chesterfield, Damon and Elise, they are consultants for Brown and Caldwell. They gave it a presentation on the city's draft 2024 stormwater management program. The draft SWMP can be found on the city's website if there's anybody that wants to review that. The city remains in compliance with the municipal stormwater permit. Comments regarding the program need to be submitted to Public Works by Friday, March 22nd. Then Bill Volek gave us some updates on projects. The city has awarded professional services contract to Transpo for the design of the LaVenture road widening project from Sigmar Lane to Hogue Road, and also to David Evans and Associates for the Blackburn Extension Project. That will go from Little Mountain Road to Eaglemont Drive. The Riverside project has been submitted and 60% designed for city review, and the 30th Street Improvements Project is expected to submit a 60% design this June. The 2024 paving and curb ramp program will consist of rehabilitating the following streets: Martin Road from College Way to McLaughlin, Kincaid Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, and Broad Street in the vicinity of the new Library Commons project. Then Chris Phillips gave us an update on cartography open government update. Phase 1 is complete, general facilities, stormwater, and operations. Phase 2 begins next week, and that'll be a 6 to 7 month process. On the sidewalk replacement program update, he gave an update on that, and March finalizing participant list, April on-call contractor pre-construction meeting, and completion weather dependent. And I think I mentioned it before, we did get a grant from PSC to put in some of the EV chargers at the City Hall, and that there's no expense to us for that. So we close the meeting at 6:57.
Thank you, Gary. Last week, we had a Public Safety Committee, and here with the Public Safety Committee report is our Public Safety Chairperson, Melissa Beaton. Councilmember Beaton.
Thank you, Mayor Donovan. That's the first time I think I've said that in a, that sounded nice. First up, we heard from police. Lieutenant Mike Moore reviewed the department's current staffing levels, recruitment goals, and qualifications. We had an overview of the hiring and training processes. We heard about the department's hiring bonuses for lateral hires and also incentives that they are offering. Next up, he mentioned that the department has a K-9 vehicle that we are no longer in use of. Our K-9 officer and his K-9 retired, and so we've got a vehicle that's available. Arlington Police needs a vehicle, and so the department is surplusing that vehicle. At some point, we will bring back a K-9 officer, but just not at this time. Next up, we heard from Assistant Fire Chief Brian Harris. He gave us a review of the Washington Surveying and Rating Bureau. The WSRB was on site today to complete the fire department's review and rating. What is the Washington Surveying and Rating Bureau? The rating is used by the insurance companies and affects fire insurance rates for our residents. They evaluate items such as dispatch response, fire prevention activities, fire code and enforcement, water pressure, our apparatus, staffing, and training. The ratings range from 1 to 10, 1 of course being the best. Our last rating was a 4, and that's very good as far as ratings go in the state. Then we heard from Director Mary Thomas. She's the director of our Informations Technology Department. She provided an overview of the department. We had the pleasure of seeing some of her staff that we haven't seen for a while, so that was nice. The department consists of information services, network operations, community media, and fiber divisions. We learned of current projects, department values, community partnerships, and infrastructure projects. In the coming months, we're going to hear more about the city's traffic cameras, use of drones, managing expenses for hardware and software, which is pretty astronomical, and records management and our fiber optic network. Then we had a discussion over 1590 and our request for proposal. 1590 refers to a 2020 bill that was passed allowing for local sales tax for affordable housing to the city. That's 0.05%. Our special projects manager, Steve Sexton, led the discussion about the RFP for the funds. We talked about budget, fund balance, and allowable spending. We then discussed outreach strategies and timelines for the application submittals, the review process, and financial requirements. An affordable housing committee will be formed to review the applications and make recommendations to council to consider. Council may choose to accept those recommendations or not. Type, size, and location of projects, as well as evaluation and scoring criteria were also discussed. The targeted date to award those funds is at the end of October this year. It's not quite finalized yet. We still have some finishing touches to put on it, but that should be coming out soon. And then Mayor Donovan reviewed the process for our community development block grant funding and the action plan. The categories for funding include administration, public service, and public facilities. The applications were discussed and recommendations were made for a draft plan. And tonight you will see on our agenda a closed record public hearing to receive the views of residents and others interested on the community development needs of the city in preparation for our 2024-2025 CDBG action plan. There was nothing miscellaneous, and we wrapped up the meeting at 8:49 that evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Bede. Item 5B tonight is council member comments. Does council have anything you want to say tonight? Council, am I close to accurate and trying to remember the decision that went behind the one-way communication during community comments was to, first of all, maybe eliminate the back and forth that could carry on for a good part of the evening when I know all of you are accessible by email, often by phone. Ward meetings are a great place for dialogue and mayor's coffee as well. But I have found all of you to be and know you to be accessible and willing to communicate to residents. So moving on to item 5C tonight is the mayor's report. And first thing on that is the Mount Vernon Library Commons construction. That's continuing to come along. You've probably noticed that. To the left, you see the interior build out on the first floor. It continues with progress, with the majority of the efforts focused on the remaining framing, drywall, HVAC, rough-in. On the right there, you see the traffic coating is in progress. I've never been so excited to see traffic coating applied to concrete. It's kind of cool. The ramp portion is mostly complete there. And in the next slide, in the last few days, you've seen the terracotta screening on the north exterior elevations being installed. Right now, people have asked screening for what? Screening for the parking levels, so you don't have to look at the cars, so that our building doesn't look like some monolithic monstrosity at the entrance of our downtown. So we instead are thinking, we're all getting very excited to see the impressive amount of design detail that's gone into making this a visually appealing landmark for our city. And the next slide, the precast stairs were set in the west stairwell last week. Those were lowered in by a crane, but yeah, fun to see all these features getting added in the final months of construction. Next slide, we'd love to invite the public to a 100-year birthday party that we're having on March 23rd. Hillcrest Park is turning 100 years old this year, and we'll be having a celebration from noon to 3 p.m. on Saturday, the 23rd. So we'll have games and cake because it's a birthday party, but we'll also be temporarily bringing back a feature that Hillcrest Park had when I was a little kid, used to play there. A petting zoo is gonna be set up that day in the park. I don't know if they're gonna have, are peacocks coming? That's a tall order, but they used to have them back in the. Oh, yeah. We're really trying for peacocks, but if anyone has a peacock connection, no, we just, there will be a petting zoo set up, so, that will be fun. And at about 1:30, there will be a short program, and we'll be burying a time capsule that our grandkids can open, at the park's 150th birthday party in 2074. On the next slide is an announcement for business and property owners and tenants along Riverside Drive. Many of you have heard that the city's going to be making some substantial upgrades to Riverside Drive from the bridge just south of Fur Street. So that's going to be happening over the next couple of years. But if you're interested in how these improvements and changes will impact your business, your church, or your tenants' operations along this corridor, please plan on attending an open house for businesses right here at the city's police court campus, 1805 Continental Place. This will take place on Thursday, March 21st at 2 p.m. And there's an email address on the screen there for you to RSVP to that meeting. It's to Bill Bullock, that's Bill B at mountvernon.wa.gov. Looking forward to transforming the look and the feel of Riverside Drive by putting in those utilities that are hanging from the telephone poles will go away. Well, they won't go away. They're gonna go underground, so you won't have to look at those. And the repaving, the sidewalks, ADA improvements, and just making this corridor more attractive and safer. And finally, the city's in the middle of our process to hire a new police chief for the Mount Vernon Police Department. We were actually crushed by the news that Chief Kamek will not be staying here forever. He let us know that. We hope that it could be possible. Since it's not, we thought we should have an extensive community-oriented process for bringing the right person here to lead this exceptional department. So here's where you all get invited to participate. The city has narrowed its search to 3 great candidates, and our residents will have the opportunity to meet those candidates in person and to ask them questions directly in a public forum at a meet and greet event. And that opportunity will take place on Tuesday evening, March 26th, again, here at the Police Court Campus, 1805 Continental Place. We'll have a Spanish-speaking interpreters for the 6 p.m. session, and then there will be an all-community English-speaking forum at 7:15, and all of that followed by maybe a little bit less formal meet and greet in the lobby here at 8:15, and we'll have interpreters available for that 8:15 session as well. So we love that our police department is so community focused, and I also love how invested our community has been in the health and strength of this department. So we hope you will all come out and give us some feedback on your impressions of these candidates on March 26th. And that is your mayor's report for March 13th, 2024. Item 5D tonight is committee agenda requests. Council, do you have requests for committee agendas? Is that Councilmember Vanderstoep?
Yes, please. Richard, for Development Services Committee, looking at the proposed ADU ordinance, I am very concerned that it is more restrictive than we want it to be. And so I would love to set up a discussion around the proposal 17.73.110, and I'd like to look at line items 4, 5, and 9. And if you're in the crowd and interested in this ordinance, I would recommend looking at line item 4, 5, and 9 to make sure that your proposed project is going to be okay with those line items.
Yes.
A couple. We had a discussion at committee about the 21st Street, Riverside, wrong street, Riverside redesign. And so specifically, we'd really like to have a committee discussion, if the rest of the council agrees, to hear more about pedestrian and bicycle options for the thoroughfare, and street trees. Second, I'd really like to hear from staff about the bioswales thing that Marianne, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your last name, that Marianne brought forward at a at a future committee.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you have your stormwater manager who intentionally remained to answer any specific questions. I know he did a field inspection of that conveyance. He's here today if you wanted to get some further information regarding that particular easement.
Is that something we could do right now?
Yeah, you're the city council. You can,
Council, would you like to
you can do it.
have some of those questions answered now?
Sure.
Give it a shot.
May have to work in a bathroom break at some point.
We can do that. Blaine, Chesterfield, thanks for being here. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, that's fine. I don't have any paperwork on that with me right now, so everything's off of memory. And I know Kevin's looked at this as well, from a legal aspect. But basically, we've looked at this channel system over the years many times. The whole parcel is owned by the HOA, and it says that they are required to do vegetation maintenance. We have a small easement. Which is for the channel and for drainage maintenance. Now, as whether this is a bioswale or not, it says on the plans it's a swale. It does not say bioswale. And the amount of flow that comes through this channel would never support grass on the bottom. It would scour it away very quickly. Bioswales usually are designed for a water quality storm, which is a low amount of flow, to be able to filter through the bottom of a flat swale. And anything above that water quality flow is usually routed around in a bypass somehow. So if you have a really big storm, it doesn't go through the swale, it goes around, because it would just scour out all the grass and it wouldn't be a bioswale. This doesn't have a bypass, and it has a huge area that drains through it. So it was never intended to be a, quote, bioswale. It was intended to be a channel that carries water down to the pond. I don't know if that answers a lot of the questions, or.
Questions for Blaine?
Well, a follow-up, I suppose, then, it doesn't sound like you're suggesting we have a maintenance obligation on this swale.
We do have a maintenance obligation, and that obligation is if it's not functioning as a channel, then we are to take care of whatever would cause it not to function properly. So if, as she was suggesting, if the berm blew out, which is also acting as a trail along there, if it blew out, or if we thought it was gonna blow out ahead of time, we could proactively come in and make sure that it didn't, because it wouldn't be staying in the channel, and that would be a maintenance responsibility that we would have to take care of. If somehow a tree or some other form of vegetation fell into the channel and was causing a problem, then we would take care of that vegetation, because that would be affecting the drainage function of the channel, and that would be our responsibility. So from a non-legal standpoint, and just a maintenance standpoint of what we typically do in operations, that's the way I look at it on this, and I know Kevin might have his own thoughts about it from a legal standpoint, but.
Well, and then
Mayor? Oh.
Yeah, Councilmember Tercero.
Have we inspected the erosion that she referenced?
Yes, we are out there several times a year looking at this. In fact, one of my technicians was out there just recently and actually had a conversation with her. So we're out there quite regularly, and not just the engineering department, our streets department, our operations department is also out there quite regularly as well. This is one of the larger ponds that we deal with, where this water comes down that channel into the Cedar Heights pond, and it actually is considered a dam by the state. So it gets actually extra attention above and beyond what a normal detention pond gets.
If I may, just very briefly. So the resident as well as the city, I would say that the city has been actively engaged in this. So I'm not sure if the council member is aware of the conversations between the resident and the city, to the point where our legal attorney has provided responses back. We've also engaged with the Department of Ecology, and the Department of Ecology has said and stated that the city is is living in accordance with the standards that have been set by DOE with the definition. So I think it would be worthwhile to hear from our city attorney on the matter, because the information is being shared, has been conveyed, has been done respectfully. We continue to assess, we continue to look, but again, I think you're gonna get to a point where we're doing by law what we are supposed to do. Okay, so I'll just leave it over to Kevin.
Any other questions for staff in general? Okay. Chris, Blaine, thank you. Other committee agenda requests from council? All right, we will move on to new business. How about that? Item 6 on the agenda. Under new business, item A is a presentation from New Earth Recovery, and our special projects manager, Steve Sexton, will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So New Earth, as you all may know, I'm sure you do, New Earth Recovery is a nonprofit organization operating a residential recovery program here in Skagit County. And they operate through love and strengthening and accompanying people in their recovery from substance addiction through a faith-based community. They have 5 homes, the Faith House and Willow House for women, and the Foundation, the Trust, and Cedar House for men. And tonight, to present this information from New Earth Recovery is Alan Mulia. Alan? Oh, right there behind me. There you go, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation to just present, and really thankful for a community that cares about these issues enough to want to hear about what we're doing. So, and I'm really honored that all of you have come to listen as well. So thanks much. Every day, I'll start with kind of a sobering note, but every day in the United States, 306 people die of a drug overdose. This number has more than doubled in the last 6 years. And this means that in our country, that the equivalent of a 9/11 emergency happens every 10 days. Almost 13 years ago, my wife and I opened our first recovery residence. At the time, we were chaplains in the Skagit County Jail, and we realized that if we wanted to make a difference in the lives of people who were in the jail, we needed to do something about addiction, and that addiction was at the core of what was going on there. We felt led to do something about that, and so 13 years later, we house people in soon to be 6 recovery residences, and as many of you know, we've also been instrumental in starting the Recovery Cafe here in Skagit County, which is serving people who aren't yet necessarily ready to step into full-time recovery, but are exploring and dipping their toe in the water. So we're trying to kind of to fill the gaps in services. In Washington, it costs taxpayers about $38,000 per year to incarcerate someone, and far more than half of the people who are incarcerated in jail or in prisons are there for some sort of drug or alcohol-related reason. We also send a lot of people to inpatient treatment. For 28 to 30 to 56 days. And the cost of that treatment is between $10,000 to $20,000 per stay, depending on how long people are staying there. So, there's a myth out there that says that if we can just send people to treatment, that they'll stop abusing substances. If we can sort of get them over that line to get them to treatment. And I say it's a myth because the success rates of treatment facilities in the U.S. and in Washington State for people who to stay in recovery for more than a year is somewhere around 10%. And that's just if we just do that alone. The numbers for sending people who are addicted to prison and or jail without any kind of aftercare are pretty similar. About a 10% success rate for people to stay in recovery. So to put it another way, the 2 most common approaches that we have to substance use disorders, incarceration and inpatient treatment, are the most expensive interventions and on their own the least effective. So what we know instead from a growing body of research in addiction and recovery is that what matters most in a person's recovery is what happens when they leave those institutions. So if they come into structured environment where they can work on the deeper issues that led to their addictions, where they can gain life skills that help them live a different way, where if they can develop strong connections within their community, both within the recovery community and beyond, their chances of succeeding in long-term recovery grow exponentially. Another way to put this is that the extent to which a community is willing and able to welcome people back into their communities with support and accountability will determine how successful they are in their long-term recovery. So if you see an addicted person as a son or daughter or brother or sister or missing parent of somebody who you know, you may be motivated to provide the kind of welcome I'm talking about because you want to see that story kind of come full circle. You may also see, if you see an addicted person as someone who is taking from the community or is committing crimes to feed their habits or costing the taxpayers money, you may also be right. But no matter how you see that person, you'll realize that supporting them in their recovery will change the game for them and for the rest of us. So a couple more statistics for you, and then I'll briefly talk about what we do. So people in long-term recovery are twice as likely to volunteer in their communities as the general population. So we're not just saving people's lives, but we're helping people become sort of thriving members of the community they're actually giving back. Instead of taking tax dollars, they're paying taxes. Instead of using community resources like emergency rooms and other resources, they are creating the fabric that helps the next people recover and get out of the lifestyle that's been so destructive. So while the success rates of addicted people leaving treatment or incarceration hovers around 10%, 68% of graduates from our 9 to 12 month program are now clean and sober today. And that's, we just looked at that statistic a week or so ago in preparation for this conversation. So at New Earth Recovery, residents come into entry-level homes, structured environments of care and support. They have a curfew, they perform chores, they volunteer and or work in the community, and most importantly, they spend a great deal of time exploring their own stories to determine what the root causes were of their addiction, how to structure their lives in such a way that they kind of live in a different way, and strategies to stay in long-term recovery. So after 9 to 12 months in our entry-level homes, residents will either move to their next phase of recovery, back to their families or to other healthy environments, or they can apply to live in one of our graduate homes. In 2018, we opened the first of our graduate homes and received some funding from Skagit County Public Health to do that, and realizing that the longer a person stays in supportive community, the better their chances are to stay in recovery and become contributing members back to society. We now operate 3 of those houses that residents can move to. They can apply to live there, and they can live there indefinitely as long as they're contributing to the house community, and while they're there, they're either in school full-time or working or doing something out in the community to kind of reintegrate. The biggest challenge that our graduates face is the exorbitant cost of housing here in our area. That's not news to you all, of course. But for a person who's just coming into recovery and maybe at an entry-level job, the gap between where they're starting and being able to afford their own place is really insurmountable for most folks. So they need to continue to live in community settings or find housemates that have similar stories that they can collaborate and move together. But what we're trying to do is help them close the gap by providing the space where they can get those skills, do the schooling and or work in order to get there. So that's what our graduate houses are about. Finally, I want to just speak to the locations of our homes. They're in a variety of settings, but most of them are in neighborhoods where our residents are contributors. They're connected to others outside of the recovery community as well as within. And our homes are attractive. They're well maintained, and we have policies for our residents that ensure that they're good neighbors. So we talk to them about noise and parking and smoking and any other issues that our neighbors might have concerns about. And we regularly and randomly drug test, even in our graduate homes, for drugs and alcohol. So we know that our house is the only one guaranteed in the community to be drug and alcohol free. And so I can count on one hand the number of EMS calls that we've had to our 5 houses over the years that we've been open. And the majority of those calls have not been about resident behavior. So they really are good neighbors and contribute to their communities. Oops, I ripped the microphone. I'm gonna put that down. Sorry about that. We know our neighbors, we communicate with them well, and they're welcome to give us feedback if they have any questions for us about how we do our work. So that's probably a good place to stop, but I'll leave you with this sort of fundamental thought, and some of you have heard this before, but the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And so what we as a community do to connect folks to us and to the greater community has everything to do with whether they succeed. And as I said at the beginning, I'm very thankful to be in a community that values that and wants to be a part of the connection that our residents feel around them in order to succeed. So I don't know if you have questions, or I know there's a lot of other things on your agenda, but I'm happy to.
Council, do you have questions for Alan? Alan, thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. No questions for me.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you make yourself available to neighbors of your facilities at any time, like I'm assuming by appointment at least.
Sometimes phone calls, whatever works for them, but we highly value those relationships.
Sounds like you have a kind of a regimented protocol about behavior, and you're certainly watching sobriety. And then do you have measures in place if there's problems that you can address the situation?
Yes, right. Yeah, our folks want to do well, and they're motivated to do that, and they do very well. And so, addiction is not a straight, or recovery is not just a straight line. Addiction is a chronic condition, and so we treat it like one, which means that there are setbacks that folks have, but when they do, we walk alongside them to help them find a path back to something. But that rarely impacts folks outside of the house. They really are generally working through those things. Most of those are internal battles. So,
Well, thank you for all you do, and really appreciate you being such a good neighbor as well.
You bet, absolutely.
Definitely.
And Alan, thank you for the tour of the Recovery Cafe, and I presume that it would be okay for council to reach out to you as well if they were curious about.
Yeah, we love showing it off. We're celebrating a year of being open in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be announcing. We're waiting for some permits from the city of Mount Vernon to finish. Sorry, I just slipped that in to finish our hood installation so that we can cook some more different varieties of food there. So as soon as that's done, we're going to have a big celebration. We'll cook some burgers. So
Thank you for the work that you're doing for our residents and for the connections that you're making for them.
Thanks, Alan.
Item B tonight is a presentation from Skagit Valley Clean Energy Cooperative, and here to introduce that item is Steve Saxon.
Thank you, Mayor. The Skagit Valley Clean
Okay,
Energy.
I'm gonna use the restroom,
Okay.
and we can either wait or not, doesn't matter.
There is a motion for a recess. Council, all in favor, say aye.
We've been here for 2 hours.
And we will be in recess at 7:58.
We had a bathroom break between council and this.
I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for Wednesday, March 13th to order. Or back to order. The time is now 8:04 p.m. And we are on item B of tonight's agenda, which is a presentation from Skagit Valley Clean Energy Cooperative. And Special Projects Manager Steve Sexton is here to introduce this item. Hi, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Skagit Valley Clean Energy Cooperative is a member-owned, not-for-profit clean energy cooperative here in Skagit County. Their core purpose is to encourage clean energy using locally available resources and to become a valued source of information promoting greener and more sustainable communities in Skagit County. And this is a presentation that they did before the SCOG board, the last meeting that the SCOG board had. I found it to be very encouraging and interesting. And here to do that same presentation are Mary Wolob and Greg Whiting. Mary?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to lower this a little bit since I'm short, okay? Good evening, and Mayor Donovan and council and citizens. I'm Mary Wolob. I'm with the Skagit Valley Clean Energy Cooperative, but also we're going to learn the Skagit Valley Clean Energy Alliance. And I also have Greg's here. He's our energy technical expert, and we also have Joan Cross here with the board, and she does community outreach. So the Skagit Valley Clean Energy Alliance is, we created that name to become a 501c3. So we're an affiliate of the Skagit County, or Skagit Valley Clean Energy Cooperative. But what we do under the 501c3 is we staff and manage the Solarize Skagit campaign, and we go for grants for public buildings. Currently, we're just wrapping up 2 feasibility grants for 2 emergency shelters in LaConner, and are underway trying to get 2 more grants for the implementation of solar plus storage on those buildings. So our partner is Olympia Community Solar. They've been doing this for at least 4 years, much younger than us, but they've been great mentors. They're also a 501c3 nonprofit. So what we'll cover today is how net metering works, about the Solarize campaign, the 2023 results. So this is the second year. We did one last year. The 2024 timeline and enrollment, and how the city of Mount Vernon can support us. So how does net metering work? I'm going to defer to Greg, who's going to talk about net metering.
Mayor Donovan, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about solar energy a little bit. One of the questions that comes up very frequently in the context of solar energy when you're encouraging someone to put solar panels on their home to supply the energy that they need for their home is, but it's dark a lot of the time. And that, so net metering is the mechanism through which the utility deals with that. So on a large scale in the utility, there are all sorts of ways to store energy, pumped hydroelectric batteries, having multiple types of power plants running. But when you're trying to put solar panels on just a single building and get the amount of energy that you need for that building, basically what you do is you overbuild it for the sunny times and then record how much you've generated and then subtract that from your meter reading during the dark times. So every spring, the utilities in Washington essentially restart your solar meter. You have a meter on your house that records how much you're using. You have a meter on your solar panels that records how much you're producing. Because the counter resets in the spring when the days start getting longer and the amount of energy that you're consuming for your winter heat goes down. If you have sized your solar panels so that they are large enough to supply the need of your entire house for the entire year, you will be over-generating during the spring months and into the summer months, and the second meter will record that and essentially put it into a bank that will show up on your utility bill. Then, as it gets darker and colder, that bank starts to go down, hence net metering. You are putting energy essentially into the bank during the sunny periods of the year and taking it out of the bank again during the colder and darker periods of the year. And every spring, the 2 meters reset and you start all over again. The result of this is that if you have your solar panels on your home, set so that so that you generate enough energy over the course of the year to power your entire home. You don't need to worry about the fact that you didn't generate enough on one rainy winter day. And the result is that when your Puget bill shows up, you will only be paying the connection charge, which is about $8 a month, rather than paying the energy charges. That it works the same way even if you have a system that is smaller than that. But the easiest way to explain it is just by starting by saying, yeah, if you are indeed generating enough energy to power your house, you will see that show up on your bill under current Washington state law. The utilities are all supplying this net metering program, and that then leads us to the other wonderful opportunities that Solarize brings to the table in terms of giving you the opportunity to take your utility bill down to almost zero at very low cost, at which point I'll turn it back over to Mary to talk further about how Solarize works.
Thanks, Greg. So what are the benefits of Solarize? First of all, this is not something that's brand new. It was started in Portland in 2009, and since then there have been many campaigns around the country and in the Puget Sound area. You can see that Queen Anne did one, Mercer Island did one, and Walton did one in 2016. The cool thing about the Solarize program, it's simple, affordable, and secure. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Simple, it's a one-stop shopping opportunity. The resident homeowner signs up online. They get an assessment done by one of our pre-vetted solar installers. Then they get a quote from the installer. They make a decision, and it's a go or no go, and then the installation starts and they start generating clean energy. So it's affordable since they qualify for a 30% federal tax credit. There's no Washington state sales tax, limited time group purchasing rate. That means that, and I'll explain this, we've contracted with, through a very rigorous procurement process, and came up with 4 qualified installers, but their prices that we've negotiated is time limited. So they're not expected to be able to hold that price indefinitely. So it is a limited group purchase rate. And there's financing available through Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union. So here's an example. I did up an example on return on investment, and bear with me these numbers. But people have asked, how do I know it's, I'm going to get it, it's worth it. So typical 1,700 square foot home in Skagit County uses about 13,200 kilowatts per year. That equates to about $1,717 a year. With the Solarize, for those 13,200 kilowatts per year, you need about 12 kilowatts of solar at about $2.47 a watt. Now, that's asterisk because this year the prices have gone down, and I just did an average for this calculation. It's between $2.33 and $2.61 under the campaign this year. So that equates to $29,640. Subtract the 30% tax incentive, and that's about $20,748. So the ROI on this, if their electric bill is reduced to $84 a year, that's just the connection fee. You take that $1,700.17 minus that 84, and you have savings of $1,632 annually. Calculate that into the $20,000, or divide that into $20,748. Your return on investment is 12.7 years. Then you also have a 25-year solar warranty on that, and then plus, according to Zillow, the added home value with solar is about 4.1%. It's secure. Again, we have worked with Olympia Community Solar, and we've pre-vetted and select qualified solar contractors. We've went and did the background checks in terms of, customer service, pricing, and their selected equipment have all rated very high. I also want to note that there were 13 installers that threw their hat in the ring during this last procurement process, and we selected 4 of those. So it's very competitive, and there's some really great installers out there. We negotiated the special pricing, and then we conduct the limited one-time campaign. So in 2023, countywide, 6 jurisdictions participated. We got 125 leads. That means people signed up for the evaluation or assessment. We got 9 installations. We converted 95.68 kilowatts to solar energy, and the average kilowatt installation was about 10.63. So I'll be honest, this was a little disappointment for us. We got kind of a late start in the campaign, and often we didn't even get in front of councils until May. And if it ends in July, which you'll see, it doesn't give us a lot of time to promote the campaign. So we had our training wheels on last year. The other thing that happened in April, interest rates rose. So people, that were interested, they couldn't afford because of the interest rates. And many can't afford the upfront costs. So here's some examples of the installations: Anna Quarters, Mount Vernon, and Connor. So in 2024, we have a better, new and improved campaign. The costs have gone down. 100% Washington-made equipment. Silfab is located here. And that's a solar manufacturer in Burlington. So we're bringing business into Skagit Valley. We've got a financing partner with Puget Sound Community. Yeah, not community, it should be Puget Sound Cooperative Credit Union for reduced rate loans. And we've expanded the campaign to Whatcom Island County, City of Kenmore, and Walla Walla. So there's additional services: battery backup, level 2 electric vehicle chargers, and home energy audits. And I had this done on my home last year. It's a very thorough audit, and they deliver a report that's very detailed with budget estimates about how much it's going to cost to do installation and so on. So the campaigns, we started our work in February. We secured the group purchasing contracts. We launched the campaign March 1st. Actually, it's not on here, but we had a kickoff at the Museum of Northwest Art on March 9th. It was a packed room, very exciting. Beautiful location venue for that, to kick it off there. And then between March and July 4th, we do outreach and enrollment. And then till the end of the year, there's installation happening. Next steps. We want your help to get the word out through your communication channels, like your city webpage, inserts in the utility bill. And that would look like putting one of these things in utility bills. And we did that last year, and it actually really worked well. So if you do support utility bill insert, we'll need billing timeline and a number of copies for us to print. I think you guys had your own printer that do that, so we would just work with you and do that. So, and that's it. We're open for questions.
Questions from council?
That's a very good presentation.
This could be a good opportunity for some of our residents to take advantage of. Okay.
Great.
Very supportive of that idea, and whatever we could do to help with marketing would be good.
Great.
All right.
So who would I probably connect with?
You've got my contact info.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Great.
Guy in the middle.
Thanks
Thank
again
you.
for being here. Thank you both.
That's it. Okay.
Item 6C tonight is an open record public hearing for the city's 2024 to 25 CDBG Annual Action Plan. And once again, I'll ask Steve to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the next step in the annual action plan approval process. Councilmember Beaton spoke about the workshop that was held last week. That was the initial step. This open public hearing tonight, we'll hear from views of the public, probably some CDBG grant applicants, and others just interested in the annual action plan process. And please keep in mind that while some applicants may speak this evening, it's not a requirement of the program. It's just if they choose to do so, it's open for them to do that. So again, this is the next step and part of the process. Following this step, there will be a public comment period for the draft annual action plan It will begin on March 26th and run through April 24th. The draft action plan will come back before the council at the April 24th council meeting, at which time we will hold another public hearing. And at that time, council will be asked to take action on that plan. And I just want to point out a couple things for the public as well as council, just a reminder. For tonight's meeting, there will be no action for the council to take. And secondly, the funding amounts that have been expressed thus far in the process are estimates only. We won't know from HUD what the final number is until we get closer to the May 15th submittal date. Current estimate right now is $332,365. Those funds will be made available, will be divided into 3 parts or tranches. I've always wanted to say that word. You hear that a lot in government.
Good use of tranche.
The first portion goes for administration of the program, and that's no more than 20% of the overall award. Also in that bucket is a repayment of the Section 108 loan that went to the Mount Vernon Library Commons project. The second bucket is for public services, with a maximum of 15% of the overall award dedicated for that purpose. And the remainder will go towards public facilities, much like you heard from the food bank earlier in the meeting. So with that, are there any questions for me before I open it up for comments and discussion? Yes.
The timeline that you described there, at what point do we actually assemble the committee that is going to help us score and review these?
That's the 1590
Oh,
process.
that's not this, okay.
We led to some confusion possibly by having both of those conversations back to back in one workshop, so that will be coming to the council in a timeline set up.
Okay, so that's separate.
Yep.
Okay.
Steve, would you say CDBG and 1590 funding are 2 different tranches?
I would, and you have to know your tranche and abide by that. And
Other questions for Steve?
Yeah, just a quick one. Why have our tranches been getting less for the last 6 years? Why is it decreasing? Do you know?
So probably the next time you talk to Congressman Larson or those, I don't know. Peter, you'd be the.
Yeah, even our CDBG consultant is baffled by that, but it's nationwide. The funding through CDBG in general is lower for jurisdictions, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, gotta do more with less, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, sometimes.
Deal with the tranche you got, I guess.
Yes, tranche your dealt. Okay. So, I can warn that out a little bit.
All right. So,
There's nothing
yeah, I
else,
think
so
with
we'll
that,
go
we can open up the open record public hearing for the CDBG 2024-25 action plan.
Okay.
Anyone like to speak? Come on up. If you could state your name and the organization you're representing or city residents, that would be great.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, citizens. I'm Curtis Steinhauer. I'm a resident of Mount Vernon, number 1. Number 2, I'm president of Welcome Home Skagit, and we are seeking to apply to the CBDG for support of our operations for our homeless outreach services. And basically what we're looking at there is it'll support our low barrier shelter projects. And those projects are year-round drop-in day shelter, which is presently operating, has been since August 1st. The goal is we've been tasked to expand to a 24-hour overnight shelter program for November, March next year. And also our year-round overnight safe parking program that's just been going since July of 2022. What we're seeking is funding to help with aiding in our regularly scheduled sources, which is coordinated entry, which recently that switched to the Volunteers of America, and they have stated that their highest amount of phone call intake has come from our center, day center. So they are working to put us in a special program for facilitating that intake process. So there is not such a long delay for our guests from the time that they initially try to contact until that is gone through, and that's done on a weekly basis. We also have scheduled regional residency clinic comes in once a week to provide any basic medical services and set appointments for our guests. Same thing with Compass Mental Health. We have Skagit Valley Recovery comes in, helps with working with recovery on one-on-one recovery coaching, as well as a 12-step program they can enter into. Mount Vernon iOS, we work very closely with integrated outreach services, almost hand-in-hand partnership, working with our guests. They know a lot of the guests that are out on the street. They bring them into us. We have guests that are there that we have to redirect to them to get better placed for their needs that we're not adequately set up to handle, whether it be behavioral health or physical health issues that they need to be dealt with. We also are going to work with Skagit Valley College for providing educational needs for our guests. And then we are just recently become a DSHS partner agency. So our guests can apply for services for DSHS, such as SNAP or Medicaid or any of those services that are handled by DSHS. They can do it directly from us rather than having to make appointments with DSHS. And we have our peer support program along with Narcan and financial literacy training. We have Pathfinders advisory group, which is made up of our guests, to where we got feedback. Many of you remember the Friday morning meetings. Well, this is a rebirth and restructuring of that. So we have that constant communication with that community as to best serve their needs. We have the shower trailer available once a week. We have computers on site, and we have phones available so they can make appointments, do job searches, whatever is necessary. And we have transportation support, such as we'll be providing transportation to and from appointments, as well as providing them with bus passes and so forth. And we are going to be working with WorkSource for employment skill building and bringing in express services to help with placement for jobs. So we're progressively working with these individuals to help get them in better contributing members of our community. Some numbers here. The drop-in day shelter, since it was utilized from August 1st to January 31st, it was utilized 3,188 times by 321 unduplicated individuals. And we provided nearly 3,000 meals, 2,932 meals. All of this has far surpassed our initial expectations when we initially set this up with a goal of, oh, well, we're going to serve 200 individuals in our first year. We've far surpassed that in just 6 months' time. Our daily average at this time is running approximately 46 persons per day, and that runs anywhere from about 35 to 50 on any given day. Our overnight safe parking has provided 54 unduplicated guests since July 1st. 107 since we started. In this, we had 16 nights operating a severe weather shelter. 94 unduplicated individuals used that facility over those 16 nights where the temperature dropped down below 32 degrees. And from November 15th through March 1st, overnight shelter services were denied 649 times by us to our guests, forcing individuals to sleep in unsafe and unhealthy conditions. And that's mainly because there's only 25 beds at First Step that's available on a given night. One of the main reasons why they come to us and ask if we want to provide an additional overnight shelter next year. Now, these are all conservative projections for 24, 25. So the drop-in shelter, we're looking to provide help for 400 unduplicated individuals. The extended overnight shelter for that 4-month period, 200 unduplicated individuals, and overnight safe parking program is 60 unduplicated individuals. The rate things are going and the way things have gone with the bills that went into hibernation because they didn't make it to a vote for rent stabilization and mortgage situation in Olympia. I project those numbers to be very high, much higher, because we're seeing a lot of the increases that we're seeing is mainly because of those two items. And that's all I have to share.
All right, council, questions for Curtis?
Thank you so much. And I know that, thank you for the last minute. Sarah would be here, but I believe her daughter is potentially in
Her
labor.
daughter went into labor this afternoon, so this was done.
Hey, home run, my friend. Good job.
Nice job.
Thank you so much.
Nice job, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
All right, thank you.
Others wishing to speak for the open record public hearing for the CDBG action plan? Yeah, come on up. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Dulce Vasquez, and I'm the Resource Center Manager over at Community Action of Skagit County. I'm here tonight to request your support in securing funding for Community Action's Mount Vernon Resource Center and the vital services that we offer. Over 1 year ago, our agency adjusted our service delivery by integrating one-to-one human-to-human care. This allows us to connect to people to immediate relief and establish personalized, ongoing support to Mount Vernon residents and residents from neighboring cities. This service especially focuses on ongoing support on some of your city's most vulnerable and marginalized residents and citizens. At the Mount Vernon Resource Center, we offer a wide range of services aimed to address immediate and long-term needs to our community members. Currently, our Mount Vernon Resource Center collaborates with our street outreach team to provide life-saving hygiene supplies, food, clothing, and other essentials. Our compassionate and professionally trained staff and volunteers provide immediate care, and we are able to meet people to immediately connect them to other community action programs, such as energy and utilities assistance, employment assistance, veteran support services, and our homeless diversion program. Through our own services and referrals through our networks, we have witnessed countless success stories, such as a senior on a fixed income once having to debate whether to prioritize their rent or a utility payment, to now being an energy participant and getting support through our program. Or an unhoused family whose only barrier was to pay that one-time fee for a deposit into an apartment, and we were able to help support them through our diversion program. In 2023, our Mount Vernon Resource Center and Street Outreach Program have helped 1,479 clients with clothes, 423 clients received hygiene supplies, and 987 clients who came into our office hungry were met with food. In being able to provide immediate needs, we're also able to develop professional relationships with clients and develop opportunities to offer other services over time. As you can tell, the CDBG support is essential in sustaining the Resource Center and its life-changing supports. I'm pleased to share that Community Action recently secured a Washington State Department of Transportation grant to acquire a fleet of vehicles. And this will allow us to provide transportation services for all age ranges, because we understand that most of our community members have some mobility barriers. And we're also hoping that with this, we'll be able to individually focus transportation resources to permit us to take our services to Mount Vernon residents and residents in neighboring cities. We'll also be able to support clients and participants by offering transportation services to and from behavioral health programs, medical care, and other vital appointments. This investment will not only enable us to provide immediate care, but also engage individuals and families in ongoing support and care, especially for your residents who need it most. Our organization is dedicated in making a lasting difference in the lives of those we serve, is evident in the positive outcomes that we have helped our clients and participants achieve. From our 2023 impact report, we have assisted 2,565 people avoid homelessness, 512 touched by our street outreach team, and 227 people who are housed now. I invite you to join us in making a difference in building a stronger, more inclusive and equitable city for everyone. Thank you for your consideration.
Great, thank you for being here tonight, for sharing. Council, do you have questions?
Thank you, Dulce, for the work you do in the community and all your staff. I really appreciate the outreach program you have going on the street and reaching out to families in need. And all of you do an amazing job. Thank you for coming to this presentation to us.
Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Are there folks interested in speaking for the CDBG action plan? All right. Seeing no others, we will close the open record public hearing. And again, there's no action for council on this item tonight, just your active consideration of the request. We will move on to item D tonight under new business, and it's another public hearing. This one, I believe, is a closed record public hearing. This one is for the preliminary plat of the Glenmore development. And Rebecca Lowell will be presenting this item tonight. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Welcome, Rebecca. It's good to see you here again.
Thank you. 1 second, let me pull up mine. There we go. So as the mayor stated, tonight I'm before you with a closed record public hearing for a preliminary plat that has been consolidated with a transportation concurrency approval and a SEPA appeal. I will be asking you to approve a motion that will grant final plat approval and that will also deny the SEPA appeal that was filed for the Glenmore preliminary plat. This plat will result in the creation of 40 lots and 6 tracts. The tracts are areas where things like stormwater or utilities will be located. That when it's developed, will result in 31 detached single-family homes, 8 duplex units, so those would be housed within 4 duplexes, and a maximum of 36 multifamily units in one structure for a total of 75 new dwelling units on the approximate 26-acre project site. The single-family duplex lots will range in size from a little over 4,000 square feet to a little over 15,000 square feet in size. And this project is utilizing the affordable housing code that council adopted a few years ago. that allows significant increases in density in exchange for the creation of what you've heard me refer to as bona fide affordable housing. So it will have to be reserved in perpetuity for those earning 80% of the area median income or less. Was the public benefit for allowing that increase in density, the multifamily uses, and some of the duplexes within this proposed subdivision. Got two maps here in front of you. The map on your left, just to get you oriented as to where this site is located overall in the city. You'll see that it's in the middle, a little bit east side of the city. It's and the map on the right is just zooming you in closer to see more particularly where this site is located. You'll see that East Division Street is on the south side of the site, and 30th Street abuts the west side of the site. I like these maps here too because they show, you can see where the existing homes are located surrounding this vacant parcel. It's nestled in an area with existing single-family homes. Just to give you a better idea of what this plat will entail, I've just taken the same maps that are in your packet and colored them up for you. As staff, we get so used to looking at these, but there's a lot on each of them. So I'd like to try to, I think this is a better representation. But I will start off by saying that north is towards the left, which I don't like doing, but it's not going to fit on the screen very well otherwise. So you'll see Division is on your right-hand side here, which is oriented not typically. So I always like to point that out to start with. Oops, I'm sorry. You'll see right here in the middle of the site what I've just identified as a NGPA. That's a native growth protection area. That's the very large wetland area and its associated buffer that you see in the lighter blue color across the site. We have a stormwater pond located in the northwest corner of the site. We've got forested buffers that will be created on both the north and east sides of the site. That will be abutting the existing single-family neighborhoods. And then I've also identified where the duplex units will be located and where the multifamily structure will be located as well, just to orient you on the site and what will be there once it's developed. So procedurally, this has been a long project. The file number is a 2021 number, so as I was going through and compiling some of these items for this evening, I had an opportunity to reflect on how long this has been. So this project was submitted back in September of 2021, and almost a month later, it was deemed technically complete for processing. That just means that within that month, as staff, we were able to look at all the materials and decide that we had enough to be able to move forward and start actively reviewing that file. At that point, we distribute it to a number of different agencies and entities so that they can provide their comments on the application to us as well. Following that, and what took up the lion's share of the time frame here, between October 2021 and August of 2023, we had 4 different sets of correction notices that went to the applicant, and then they take the time that they need to respond to those, give us back revised plans. There were some complete redesigns. Well, I would say complete, but substantially different designs that were submitted during that time. So there did take longer than we would normally see to get to the point that we were able to issue. What I've identified here is the NOA, which is the Notice of Application. That's the notice that goes out to all of the property owners within 300 feet of the site and invites them to comment on the application. They've got a 14-day comment period. That was consolidated with the SEPA determination, which is the State Environmental Policy Act. And what was issued there was a proposed mitigated determination of non-significance, or what you'll hear us say is an MDNS. which basically means that we have looked at what was submitted, and we've looked at our existing regulations and determined that an EIS, or an environmental impact statement, was not needed because we were able to mitigate adverse conditions through our existing regulations and the mitigation measures that were outlined in the SEPA determination that was provided to the neighbors. This project did have a SEPA appeal. We don't get those very often, but we do get them every now and again. So we did have an official SEPA appeal that was filed in November of 2023. So what that meant procedurally was that then we had a hearing where we had consolidated the preliminary plat and the traffic concurrency, but we also had to wrap in the SEPA appeal to that. So we then had 3 items that were coming before the hearing examiner. That happened in December of last year. We had an open record public hearing, as I stated, before the hearing examiner, and he he made recommendations on the preliminary plat concurrency and the SEPA appeal. And what you'll hear me speak to in just a moment is that the hearing examiner did recommend approval with conditions of the preliminary plat and the concurrency, and he asked that he recommended to City Council that you deny the SEPA appeal as well, which of course brings us to tonight, finally. So here we are tonight at the closed record public hearing for this item. What I did want to just mention, because it's been a while since at least I've been before you with a closed record public hearing, is that because this is a closed record hearing, what that means procedurally for City Council is that the only discussion that can happen tonight is from the existing record. So new evidence can't be presented, but parties of record or applicants that did speak at the hearing examiner hearing, of course, are welcome to come and speak again, but they can't bring up new evidence. I also just provided with your, what bucket we're in tonight when we talk about legislative, quasi-judicial, or administrative. We're in the quasi-judicial realm this evening because this is the type of permits where we do that. So, so the proposal has been found to be consistent with the Mount Vernon Municipal Code and our comprehensive plan. The procedural requirements for preliminary plats, the SEPA process, and the SEPA appeal process have all been satisfied. The proposed preliminary plat, traffic concurrency, and SEPA appeal were considered at a public hearing before the hearing examiner, who, as I stated earlier, recommended approval of these items with conditions. And again, he recommended the SEPA appeal be denied, which means that it would, you would sustain the SEPA determination. So the city made a SEPA determination, which was in the form of an MDNS, or that mitigated determination of non-significance, that was issued by the city's SEPA responsible official. So, although City Council does have more than just 3 options, I thought I would just list the 3 very obvious options here. So, of course, you could approve the resolution before council, providing conditional approval of the preliminary plat and denying the SEPA appeal. You could approve these items, but you could ask that different conditions be added to your approval. You could also deny the preliminary plat and affirm the SEPA appeal. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Rebecca tonight? Any procedural questions or any other details council wants to know? Yeah, Kevin.
I just want to add a little bit, just get you the right legal framework here. You have 3 steps that Ms. Lowell has properly laid out, but it's important to note that the city council here is acting as an arbiter of fact and law, and that is policy. So these decisions you make before you have to be based upon substantial evidence in the record. It's not an ad hoc determination because you feel like the project is not to your liking. It is a objective application of the law that you have adopted previously in your zoning regulations to the legislative record. So decisions that you make tonight need to be supported by the evidence. And if it's not supported by the evidence, then it could be prone to an appeal.
Helpful, thank you. Does that raise any questions? Everyone clear on that? Okay. So then I assume our next step is to open the closed record public hearing, is that right?
Please, Mayor.
Let's do that. We will now open the closed record public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on the record tonight, please come forward and state your name and city of residence.
Hi, Council. My name is Megan Cardenas. This is my husband, Dale Patrick. We live in Mount Vernon. We actually have, you can see our lot, but I'm not going to point it out. Anywho, we are here because we do own a property immediately adjacent to this land division, and we'd like to add a fourth option for you tonight, which is remanding this project back to staff to fix some what we believe are glaring problems. My husband and I are not NIMBY people. We're both geologists, we both worked in consulting, and we both work in local government. We understand that the permitting process is intended to balance competing interests. We do not believe that the permitting process has properly evaluated all of the risks to existing property owners, and so for that reason, we ask that you remand the project back to staff. My husband and I are very concerned about the lack of emergency ingress and egress as is required by code. To make the emergency that will come worse, the highest density complex is located at the only ingress egress. That layout alone will make things difficult for first responders to access the scene. Then to deviate from code by simply requiring residential fire sprinklers, I believe conflates the ability to escape a structure with the ability to escape an area. In my former life as a planner, I sat next to well-respected fire marshals who I heard explain numerous times that the sole purpose of residential fire sprinklers is to give occupants enough time to evacuate the structure. We do not believe deviating from code in this manner should jeopardize public safety to this degree. Mount Vernon has a critical aquifer recharge area code as is required by state law to protect surface and groundwater quality. The wetland across the subject properties appears to meet the categorical requirements for a Category 2 critical aquifer recharge area. And with my master's degree in hydrology, I can tell you that we have the hill of division full of water coming straight for us. And to add to it, there is still wetland filling that's proposed that does regulate stormwater for all of us. I struggle to envision a project that should have required a hydrogeologic site assessment more than this one, and yet that was not required by planning staff here. Regardless of whether or not a hydrogeologic assessment was required, the city allowed individuals to practice hydrogeology without a license, according to Washington Administrative Code 308-15053. Unlicensed professionals have identified and mapped hydrologic features for this project. Unlicensed professionals reviewed these hydrologic features. This product was then used to develop the drainage report. For these reasons, we do not believe that the drainage report was able to fully quantify, convey, and treat the amount of water that will be on site. Further, I believe this application should have been reviewed under the 2019 Stormwater Manual as Mount Vernon, as I believed was required of Mount Vernon as a Phase 2 MPDES permittee. A defensible workflow would have been for a wetland investigation separate and apart from a hydrogeologic site assessment, with both biologists and licensed hydrogeologists evaluating the property and putting together reports. Those reports would have then been handed over to the project engineer who would have put together their own drainage report. That did not happen in this case, and I do not believe the process that occurred here would stand up to scrutiny. In closing, I believe that the lack of emergency ingress and egress as required by code should be enough to remand this project back to staff. If that is not enough, I believe that the city should have required a hydrogeologic site assessment consistent with Mount Vernon Municipal Code 1540050. Absent a requirement for a hydrogeologic site assessment, the city allowed unlicensed scientists to identify hydrologic features in the wetland, which doesn't appear to be consistent with state law. These unlicensed individuals that identified hydrologic features then provided that information to the project engineer for the drainage report. That drainage report was then developed and reviewed under the 2012 Stormwater Manual, while I believe the city's status as a Phase 2 MPDES permittee required review under the 2019 Stormwater Manual. That's 5 different errors in judgment or law that I believe require this project to be remanded back to staff. If this project is approved in its current state, my husband and I know who to hold responsible for any flooding damages that we receive. We both wholeheartedly believe in responsible development, and we were both mired in the housing crisis for nearly a decade, so we are not unsympathetic to that argument. We know that the housing crisis is real. The permitting process for this project, however lengthy it was, has not demonstrated to even a reasonable degree of certainty that this project is responsible. And so again, we ask that this project is remanded back to staff to fix these glaring issues. Thank you. And if we have to take off soon, it's getting a little bit late for us. We got some stuff to get back home to.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for sharing. Others wishing to speak on this item this evening or on the record? Okay. Seeing no others. Rebecca?
I apologize, I was thinking there were more folks here.
What's next?
If council has questions, happy to address them. I will say in short that the hearing examiner's recommendation that's before you addressed the drainage, the hydrogeo issues, the fire access issues in depth, and has all the findings of fact and conclusions of law that were before the city council this evening.
Great.
Happy to address questions or concerns.
Councilmember Brocksmith has a question, I believe.
Yeah, just in reading the materials and the conditions provided by the hearing examiner in CC, is it, or attachment CC? I was surprised, I guess, maybe I shouldn't have been, to see the sprinkling of all facilities. And I wasn't aware, I thought we did not have a requirement for fire sprinklers for residences, and maybe there was some sort of trade-off here, and you could explain that to me.
Happy to, thank you. That trade-off was what was just spoken about was ordinarily when you have a subdivision that is serving more than 30 dwelling units in single-family, multifamily, whatever combination they might be, which this development is well over that, they're required to have 2 access points. One of those access points can be an emergency vehicle access. As you can see from the map that I left up, I thought there might be some questions about this. You can see there is only one access in and out of this subdivision. This is not the first subdivision the fire marshal has made this policy decision on. It is, the council has seen several in the recent past that I can think of, where what the fire marshal has said is, we will allow one access point. However, you're going to have to sprinkle every building in this new subdivision because there's only one access point, or you could provide that second access point. My assumption being is that the applicant likely would have gone through the exercise of figuring out the feasibility of trying to construct a second access point would likely be close to the existing stormwater tract in that location. And my, again, assumption, I don't know for sure, would be that they found that installing the fire sprinkler systems was the better option, or the option that, at the end of the day, that's the option they chose, was to do that, so.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Councilmember Tercero.
The risk to flooding that was referenced, how was that addressed in the hearing examiners?
So stormwater impacts in general, I'll say for this project and for any project that is submitted to the city, we required a licensed civil engineer to provide a drainage report. That drainage report is then provided to our engineering division manager, who then looks at that, reviews it, makes sure that it's consistent with our municipal code, which is also consistent with state law. And then he approves that with or without conditions. In this case, there were, all the correction notices were in your packet, and I know it was there was a lot of information in there to dig through, but there were comments with regard to the drainage report early on, and different items were resubmitted that by the fourth correction were satisfied, and our engineering manager was satisfied, and he recommended that we move forward. I will also say, though, when we're at this stage, when we're doing the preliminary plat, there will be more detailed technical information that will be required that the applicant will need to submit following this. So conceptually, right now, they're modeling what they think the impervious surfaces will be, the roads, those types of things. The applicant's next step, should the preliminary plat be granted tonight, is going to be to submit a fill and grade permit. And then our engineering division will then have another opportunity to look at that and make sure that it complies with code before the applicant is allowed to be out on the site installing the site infrastructure.
Councilmember Molinar.
Okay, I just need to get, I know the property. I gotta get just a little bit more of a perspective, and it might be better to go back to the previous slide that showed all the different houses around it. Yeah. So, if I'm hearing correctly, that they are saying that, the opponents are saying that there's gonna be water going off this site onto their property. To me, it looks like Division is, and Shoshone was up on the, that's going up Division, right? So water's going down. Where is their property that they're thinking that all this is gonna go onto their property?
So I believe the last speaker's home is on the east side of the site, although I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if she's, okay, if they're still here or not, but.
They're on 30th.
But I can say that the SEPA appeal that was filed, that's what the lion's share of the materials that you have before you, the appellant is on the east side of the site.
The what is?
The people who filed the SEPA appeal. They were on the east side of the site, so as you were looking through your packet of materials, that is where you're seeing that information was from over there. And yes, I believe I've got a topo map, or that would be, there is a difference in elevation from the southeast corner along the east side of that site. There is an elevation difference with the project site being lower in elevation than the abutting properties, as you're recalling.
So they are lower than, no, they are higher. But
Correct.
they're worried about water going on their property. from this development,
Correct.
okay? And your hydraulic studies on this say we are good to go.
What the stormwater report that was submitted and reviewed by our engineering department found that it complied with code, and they recommended approval. And it basically, too, I'll go back to this map. This site, as you can see, they've just got the one stormwater pond, and I'm sorry because I've got the two maps oriented differently, so I know it can be a little confusing, but the stormwater pond is in the northwest side of the site, so the stormwater will be attenuated there and then released as it's required at the rate it's required to be released at. Some of the, they call the clean stormwater that's not touching the roads, will also be used to hydrate the existing wetland as well, because we have to keep that wetland in its existing condition at the same time. So all of those items were modeled in the stormwater reports that are in your packet. And then we also have all of the wetland reports, which are two distinct things that are, that there are different subject matter experts that have reports in here.
Councilmember Hudson had a question.
I do. I guess I'm a little bit confused about the unlicensed people doing jobs that licensed people are supposed to be doing. And I should have written a note, and I didn't. I apologize, and I hope I'm saying it properly so that it's understandable what I'm going for. Can you explain that piece for me?
I wish I could. I wrote it down as well. Okay. What I can tell you is that I've never had that exact comment made in the context of developing property. Okay. And I've been doing this for a bit. Okay. So I will find out, okay. And I'm happy to. I'm not sure.
Okay. The question before the council acting as a judge is, does it conform to your code? And if it conforms to your development code, is whether or not the reports were sufficient in your development regulations. That would be an issue for you to decide tonight as whether or not the facts comply with the law.
Okay, thank you, because this is pretty, there's a lot of information going on here, so I appreciate you clearing that up and making it more clear for me. I appreciate that. I do have another question, if I may. Why was this, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, why was the SEPA appeal denied? Did I say that right?
So the hearing examiner went through, and what he found was that he cited the threshold by law that they have to look at, mm-hmm. and he found that after looking at every element of the environment, which is what the SEPA responsible official does, is that bar was met, okay. and that there was no substantive evidence that was presented that would say we had erred in that analysis.
Okay. Thank you.
The questions, council? Yes.
Does our code require licensed, qualified individuals to prepare reports?
So stormwater reports are required to be prepared by a licensed civil engineer who's licensed in the state of Washington. Mm-hmm. And we did receive a stormwater report from a civil engineer that's licensed in the state of Washington. And I think he's here tonight as well. So that was received and reviewed by our staff.
Right. Thank you. I do have one more question. So in reading the materials, there was, SEPA appeal around the view issue, and we don't have view codes except in heights of adjacent buildings, it seems like. But I was curious about the fence, and if the fence itself was brought up. I didn't find that in particular, and I was just curious if fences, if there's a way, and that not only is there a 6-foot fence between the abutting properties, there's also, will be a forested buffer, a fairly dense to obscure views, which is kind of not what I would assume the adjacent landowners are interested in. They might want to keep their views. Do they have the ability to work with the adjacent landowners to reduce the fence and the buffer? Or that's just a mandate? We passed those codes. I remember passing those codes for that reason. But this is an interesting conflict between loss of view. We were trying to reduce the impact of the view, but it's also, I'm sure, a beautiful view up into the sky too. I'm just curious if there is a way to work with the adjacent landowner, if both the landowners agree. Is there a policy route? Is there a route after the fact for that to happen?
Not as it's currently conditioned. No, it wouldn't be. But I think this is a perfect discussion of policy as we see more and more infill, more and more high-density infill, of the tension that will be more and more commonplace and be brought back before city councils. We're looking at these issues because this is, in this case, you'll find in the record, as we've stated earlier, there is a difference in elevation between the location of that multifamily apartment and the entity who filed the SEPA appeal. I believe that the 3-story multifamily building that they are putting on this lot would potentially block a view far more than your fence or your landscaping would, but is also testified in the record too by the civil engineer that, and I might have to pull this up so that I get it right, but it's in the record, that the top of the proposed multifamily structure will be at the same height as the roof of the appellant's house. And if that's at the same height, of course you're going to have your fence and landscaping isn't going to be, it'll be significantly, less tall, but so wouldn't really be an issue, in my opinion, if you're thinking about a view issue as presented.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for just talking through that. Appreciate it.
Okay, council, if you'd like to make a motion on this item, it would be for resolution 1053.
I'd make a motion to approve resolution, did you say 1053? I don't have the number in
I'll
front
ask
of
the
me.
clerk, is 1053 correct? Yeah, that's right.
Seconded.
Okay, motion to approve the resolution as 1053 was made by Councilmember Brocksmith, seconded by Councilmember Tercero. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you, Rebecca, for the explanation. Yeah, side note, it seems like a strange position for elected officials to be in a quasi-judicial decision-making position with, varying levels of understanding and interest in planning. So we've had an expert recommend this, and now you have to decide that. So maybe a further discussion for whether we want that to remain in place, because I believe it also can slow down a process that experts have ruled on. On the other hand, it gives you a chance to look at things that come up. So maybe a good discussion to have. Moving on to item 6E, it's a collective bargaining agreement with Protect 17, and Human Resources Director Aaron Cater will present this item. Hi, Aaron.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here tonight regarding the Protect 17 collective bargaining agreement. Protect 17 is a new union. They formed last year at the end of 2023. We have negotiated with them and created a union agreement from scratch. The Protect 17 covers 16 positions in our Development Services Department. I feel that the highlights of this negotiation is the entire contract, but to keep it short, I will go with it's a 3-year contract. We've got cost of living adjustments, 4.5% effective January 1st, 2024, 2% January 1st, 2025, 2% July 1st, 2025, and 3% January 1st, 2026. The cost to implement this year is going to be $16,200 approximately, and that was budgeted. With that, I recommend that council authorize the mayor to sign the Protect 17 collective bargaining agreement for January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Protect 17 collective bargaining agreement.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Beaton, second by Councilmember Molinar. Any discussion, council? Yes.
Sorry, I just missed, how large is the bargaining unit?
It's about 16 positions.
Thank you. That was it, thank you.
Motion's on the floor. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to that bargaining unit.
Item F is another agreement, this one between the city and Whitney Equipment Company for the purchase of pumps at the Maple Lane Pump Station, and wastewater treatment facility manager Gary Duranzo has been waiting patiently to present this tonight.
Yes.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Staff recommends a motion be made by council authorizing the mayor to award the purchase for the pump procurement for Maple Lane Pump Station to Whitney Equipment Company of Woodinville, Washington, in the amount of $144,704. Maple Lane Pump Station was built in the mid-1970s to convey wastewater from West Mount Vernon to the wastewater treatment plant. Maintenance performed having included replacement of the pump volutes, impellers, and miscellaneous mechanical and electrical components. The original pumps are over 50 years old and are in need of replacement. Replacing the pumps with the same brand of pumps would be more expensive than replacing with other pre-qualified manufacturers. After researching other pump suppliers, it was determined that 4 manufacturers met the performance design requirements and specifications. 2 bids were received on February 14th, 2024 for supplying 3 vertical dry pit submersible pumps along with check valves, pump bases, and other assemblies and hardware required for 2 pumps. The low bid provided by Pump Tech in the amount of $136,316.61 was rejected on the grounds that it was non-responsive. The pumps that Pump Tech submitted in their bid were off of the required pump curve. The next low bid was submitted by Whitney Equipment in the amount of $144,704 and was determined to be responsive and prepared in accordance with the contract documents. At this time, staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to sign a purchase agreement for the pump procurement for Maple Lane Pump Station in the amount of $144,704, and this is funded in our 2024 budget. Any questions?
Questions for Gary?
I'll make a motion that we have the mayor sign the bid award for the pump procurement for Maple Lane Pump Station.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hudson, a second by Councilmember Carias. All those in favor, well, we'll wait before we vote. Any discussion?
That's a simple question. We've talked about this before, but just wanted to ask the question. This is all exists in our budget, is budgeted and below level in the budget?
Yeah, it's funded in our budget. Yep.
Other questions? Other discussion? All those in favor of approving the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion passes. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
I feel like it was worth
Gary,
the 3 hours and 17 minutes.
I'd just like to say that if this in fact was date night, you owe her not 1 makeup, but 2.
Yes.
At least, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Wendy. All right, item G is an agreement for MBI Systems for Interior Furnishings, and our fast-talking Public Works Director, Chris Phillips, will be presenting this item.
Thank you very much, Mayor Donovan, but I also want to thank Councilmember Beaton for mentioning that to Mr. Duranzo. I had said that just earlier to him. Before I get started, Mayor, I did want to state for the record here that the word trounce, for those of us who are not very well versed in the English language, which I am not, I are an engineer. Trounce refers to a portion in a series of payments for a specific goal and with measured aims for future allotments. The payments are scheduled over a specific time. Just thought I'd add that to the.
Thank you for the clarification.
So you
Thanks.
take a minute off your presentation now?
Yes. Docket. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Omnia Partners, a cooperative purchasing agreement with MBI Systems for a previously discussed and approved City Council expenditure for the Mount Vernon Library Commons furniture in the amount of $79,435.39. With tax, it increases to $86,425.70, and there is a 50% down payment required for this purchase. There's two others that go in, but again, the city is using cooperative purchasing agreement, which again allows the city to get the best price for product. And you can see that working with OAC Services, who is our management consultant, this is spread out through three companies because we had three distinctive portions of furniture that were going, and we went with experts in each one of those specific fields. Pending your questions on MBI.
Questions for Captain Phillips?
Would it be appropriate to combine item G, H, and I as a slate?
I don't believe it is because there are agreements with different vendors.
Fair enough.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's three separate ones.
Total amount of this first agreement was?
$86,425.70.
Okay. Councilmember Burns.
My standard question on the next three, we did budget for all of these, but all of these together are below what we budgeted?
Correct, and again, it's within the expenditure that council has already approved.
Okay, thank you.
Appropriation, so we're living within those lifelines.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll make a motion that council authorize the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with MBI Systems and Omnia Partners for Library Commons furniture.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Beaton, a second by Councilmember Carillas. Is there any discussion on this? Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Chris, can you take us to the next one, the agreement with WorkPoint for the, again, purchase of interior furniture?
Yes, sir. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with KCDA Purchasing Cooperative Agreement number 24130 with WorkPoint for a previously discussed and approved City Council expenditure for the Mount Vernon Library furniture in the amount of $251,063.39. With tax, an additional $22,093.58 for a grand total of $273,156.97.
Questions for Chris on this item?
I'll just ask the same question that Councilmember Brocksmith asked. This is at or below budgeted amount?
Lower.
Okay, good.
Other questions?
I'd move to approve, mayor enter into agreement with KCDA, purchasing a cooperative agreement 24130 with WorkPoint.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Molinar, a second by Councilmember Beaton. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item I is also an agreement for Library Commons furniture. You're on a roll.
Okay, yes, sir.
Take it.
City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter an agreement with Open Square for a previously discussed and approved City Council expenditure for the Mount Vernon Library Commons furniture in the amount of $106,085.85. And again, this is using cooperative purchasing agreements. This one happens to be through the University of Washington's cooperative purchasing agreement.
Questions for Chris? Motions for Chris?
I'll make a motion that we authorize the mayor to enter into a University of Washington cooperative purchase agreement with Open Square.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Hudson and a second by, was that Councilmember Vanderstoop?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Further discussion, yes.
I just simply want to say, go dogs.
Well, apparently there was not a contract available with Washington State University, so we had to do this.
Yeah. You knew I wasn't gonna make a motion.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. All right, go Cougs. On to item J. It is a street closure request for the Mount Vernon School District to host a Cinco de Mayo parade. And Parks Director Jennifer Berner and friends are here. Welcome.
So our friends have been here for a little bit.
Good.
And so they said they wanted to experience a council meeting, and boy, did they get one.
Yikes.
We wanted to be on TV.
Mission accomplished.
I wanted more TV time.
I'm just gonna give them a little break to introduce themselves, and then I'll go through with the agenda, just real quick.
Yeah.
Since they made the time to be here.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Ramon. Hi, Council. Hi, Mayor. I'm Ramon Rivera. I'm the director of the mariachi program at Mount Vernon High School, and I also teach the Latinos in Action class. So one of our goals in this proposal is to have a Cinco de Mayo parade here in beautiful downtown Mount Vernon, and we're going to use the same parade. Oh, okay, I do all that good stuff. But anyway, I just want to celebrate music, culture, and art, and I'm getting more TV time, that's all I want. It's okay. I want to introduce, I brought you a couple students that are part of the LIA and mariachi program, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Maritza Sanchez. I'm a senior at Mount Vernon High School, and I'm a part of the LIA and Flocorico at the Mount Vernon High School.
Hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm also a senior. I've been a 3-year LIA president, and then I'm also like a leader for the mariachi program, and that's just some things.
Nice. Again, thank you for coming this evening and for hanging in there. And so before you this evening is a street closure request for the Cinco de Mayo parade. It's on Sunday, May 5th. And we are closing down the streets the same as we do for the holiday parade. So it's Cleveland there, First Street, and we're closing down from Milwaukee to the beginning of the south end of Division Street. And it's following the same exact route that the holiday parade has followed. So we block off those side streets as well to keep everybody safe during the parade. So what's before you this evening is to approve the street closure for the May 5th Cinco de Mayo parade.
Okay.
Council, do you have questions?
Yes, because I'm part of this beautiful group, I would like to ask the mayor and my colleagues, please allow me to move this motion.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Carillas, a second by Councilmember Tercero. And is there any discussion? Questions?
I just can't wait to
Comments?
see the parade. That
Yeah.
sounds really exciting. What a great idea.
Ashley can tell you all about it.
We got all
We
night.
want to make the meeting longer. But Maritza, why don't you tell them what the parade's all about?
Yeah, so we're gonna have different Flocorico groups part of there. Me and Mr. Rivera were talking about having a Peruvian group there, so not just the typical Mexican Flocoricos that we see. We're also planning on having the dancing horses that we typically see in the Latino community, and also just having floats that all represent different aspects of the Latino community.
And we're going to have lowriders. I think the mayor used to be in a lowrider. I motion.
Done, seconded. We got a motion on the floor to close the street. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Marissa, Ashley, thank you for being here tonight. Great job, and thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, it's on my calendar.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be there.
Item K tonight, we're closing another street.
We're closing the same street.
Same streets, another day.
Yes.
Jennifer.
So On to our street fair that we do every year at the tulip season. So this is the same exact street closure as we've done for many, many years. Again, we are closing down First Street, and from here it's Broadway to Division. A little bit shorter closure, but it's, again, just First Street and Cleveland, and with the side streets as well, to keep everything safe. The addition to this is that it's for 3 days. So it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the street will be closed for all 3 days.
Questions from council?
No questions. I'll just make a motion that council approve the street closure request for the 2024 Tulip Festival Street Fair.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Beaton and a second by Councilmember Hudson. Any discussion?
We are just excited to see
Yeah.
the festival and
Great
this.
time.
Yes,
No rain.
great time in the
No
first street.
All right, that's an amendment.
No
to
rain.
the motion.
Cross your fingers.
All those in favor of the motion for the street closure request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Jennifer.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, council, last item tonight, which feels sad, is item L, which is a proposed emergency ordinance related to accessory dwelling regulations in Mount Vernon, and City Attorney Kevin Rogerson is here to close us out and present this item to council tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This is going to be a two-part presentation. I'm going to give you a roadmap as to the legal procedures we're about to engage in and the law, and then we're going to have your Development Services Director talk about the substantive issues contained in the ordinance before you. On May 8th, 2023, the state legislature adopted into law a bill, it's called Engrossed House Bill 1337. It's entitled Expanding Housing Options by Easing Barriers to the Construction and Use of Accessory Dwelling Units. What this bill has done, it's still a session law, it hasn't even been codified yet into your revised Code of Washington, is it creates by legislative fiat or mandate that all local jurisdictions who are planning under the Growth Management Act have to adopt into your zoning regulations certain parameters on how we deal with those types of dwelling units defined as accessory dwelling units. And the law requires compliance within a date certain. The city has asked the city attorney as to whether or not there are legal pathways or roadmaps that we can do this sooner outside that process of comp plan amendment docketing. And there is, which probably surprised a lot of you because I usually say no, but there is. State law has anticipated such needs when there is an emergency issue that we can be flexible and nimble enough to adopt what's called interim regulations or a moratoria. And that is codified in two separate places in state law, both in your Title 35A, which is how you are organized under a code city, and also under the Growth Management Act. It authorizes you as a local government to adopt these types of interim zoning regulations if you do so to establish an emergency and temporary zoning while you allow applications or while developing changes to your zoning code. What you have before you is such type of an ordinance. How this works is you would adopt an emergency ordinance as set forth here. It would only be passed by a majority of the whole plus one of the council voting. It would take effect immediately, and then as required by state law, because you haven't held any public notice and process or hearing that you're typically required to do it, you do it within 60 days, and then you can revisit it. A couple of things I just want to note about the types of creatures these are. These aren't permanent ordinances. They're usually a start. They're not a finish. This can change through your permanent regulations, or it can change during your revisiting this interim ordinance within the 60-day hearing or later if it's not meeting the emergency issues you've identified in your recitals. So this is a first step, not a last step. What you have here is a lot of recitals because you are making findings of fact. A factual predicate is necessary to show that this is an emergency. Heck, just the testimony tonight can probably be sufficient to show that there is a housing emergency in the city. But you have codified that in your recitals. This was then once an emergency is adopted, everything in past the enabling language, section 1, section 2, beyond that, that's your substantive changes. And what this does is basically start the compliance with that legislative mandate today, looking at those requirements that the state has prescribed in Engrossed House Bill 1337. And then your Development Services Director can talk about those changes. So that's what this does today. And it complies with your comp plan as well, which is important to note. So we had to wrestle those two because compliance with your comp plan obviously is an important factor. So if you have any questions about the legal framework, how this works, happy to discuss. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Questions for Kevin on the legal aspect? Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Stacy, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin, for that introduction of the ordinance. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So I appreciate that description of the regulatory background. And so I'll go ahead and jump into, as Kevin described, the substantive portions of this particular proposal. So this evening for your consideration, there's really three sections that equal the totality of this ordinance for council to contemplate. The first, of course, as Kevin described for you, are the recitals of the ordinance itself, which provide justification for the city council to do an emergency declaration of a housing crisis. The second are the proposed code red lines themselves, which include the updates required by House Bill 1337, with the exception, and as Kevin noted there, to the owner occupancy requirement. You'll see in the red lines that the owner occupancy requirement for ADUs is retained. The reason for that, and we are proposing that, is because currently policy 2.1.4 of the currently adopted comprehensive plan, specifically the housing element, states that accessory dwelling units be subject to owner occupancy provisions. So in order to avoid creating an inconsistency between the comp plan and the development regulations, this section of code is proposed to be retained. Also, please note that as part of your review of that broad second portion, additionally, there has also been prepared a table, and it's included as attachment 2, and it looks like this. And this table provides a synopsis of all the red lines that you'll be considering this evening. And so this table falls into 3 broad categories. We've said where the Mount Vernon Municipal Code already complies with the House bill. We've noted where it doesn't comply, and then how we have proposed to make it comply. So said, here's what the House bill says, here's how we've written it so that it would now comply. And again, with the exception of the owner occupancy requirement, which would not be consistent with the city's comp plan at this time. So the third section for consideration, and Kevin also mentioned this as well, is in Exhibit A. And this would demonstrate how the city intends to be in conformance with the state law and develops a draft schedule to justify the regulations adopted by the emergency ordinance by applying that classic rulemaking process that we're all familiar with and that Kevin mentioned to you. We propose red lines to code. Those are discussed in City Council Committee. There's a public participation plan to ensure early and continuous involvement with the public in the development of those regulations. The Planning Commission is the advisory body to City Council, would then hold a public hearing to make a recommendation, and then ultimately City Council is the decision maker. And so all of that is contemplated even with the emergency ordinance. It just happens that it happens to take place after there's this first step, as Kevin described. So as always, I appreciate council's time. I know it's late, and I know we all love talking about legislation and GMA at 9:45 in the evening. So I will do my absolute best to answer any questions. And Kevin, is there anything you wanted to add to that discussion before we take questions from council?
No, the only other legal thing I think I failed to mention is your adoption of a work plan entitles your interim ordinance to be effective for 1 year.
Thank you.
The statutes are pretty clear. If you don't do that, it's a 6-month effective date before you have to go back and either decide to renew it, change it, have another hearing.
All right. Thank you both. Questions for Stacy or for Kevin? Council.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
Would you mind if we continue the discussion that we had earlier today?
Yeah, if you want to bring up any comments, discussions, concerns.
I gonna do a terrible job of summarizing this, but maybe you can do a better job.
Sure.
My issues, once again, are with 4, 5, and 9 of this proposed ordinance. And my concern being, that we have many single-family residences that do not currently have, 2-car garages. And, if you were to attempt to put in an, accessory dwelling unit now, and there was not a, 2-car garage currently on the, house, what's it, the principal unit.
Right, the principal use.
That you would then be asked to, at the time of submission of the ADU permit, to, have a conforming structure. I find that to be, well, I don't have a personal opinion on that, let's just say that, but that was not something that we had discussed previously, and I'm not sure that it was the intent of the council, to have that be a part of this or not. So 4, 5, and 9, are all things combined that lead that to be the case, and I would at least like to open up to discussion. I have no intention of amending this tonight because the harm that it would do potentially if we amended something incorrectly could be quite bad, but I just want to discuss it, and I have no intention of being an objectionist to any, buddy wanting to build tomorrow or put in a permit tomorrow, but I do want our intent to be clear and for this to match that.
Right, so we can open it up to council for questions or comments. Discussion on unintended implications.
And I can try and do that again. I'm better with like a whiteboard or something, which is something that I might move that we put in here at some point. But it is the 6,000 square foot lot. If I currently have a principal unit and I'm adding an ADU, the parking requirements for the principal unit apply. If I do not fulfill that requirement, when I put in the ADU, now both of those requirements are applicable. That could be a deterrent, if that makes sense, especially in our older neighborhoods. The number of homes that I've driven by after I thought about this today, the 70s developments, the 20s developments, the 40s developments, most of those have had their garages converted, or they have a single car garage. All of those things would then prevent an ADU from being built. Or excuse me, not prevent, it would,
Trigger some more requirements.
yes.
That's accurate?
Yep.
So my concern is, my concern is, I want to get this going as quickly as we can. I want to start this process, getting going. Realizing that this is, as you both stated, the starting point. This is like first blush, right? It might not be, everything that we want it to be right this minute, but it will get something moving perhaps. That's it. So, I mean, I hear what Andrew's saying. We talked about it. So I understand where he's going. I just don't want to, kick it down the road a little bit more. If indeed we got this going and something could start happening as soon as, and not having built, it's like tomorrow, I'm gonna start this process. You know, I just want to be able to get something going to help this crisis that we're in. So realizing that I definitely wanna discuss, you know, I don't wanna let that go away. I wanna discuss that and amend it if the council, you know, agrees. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I think both you and Councilmember Van der Stoep bring up the perfect point, and I think that encapsulates exactly what we do need to be talking about. You know, the state has told us, hey, cities, take a look again at your parking minimums. We know that's the direction we're going and are gonna have those discussions. So, yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Brocksmith had a question.
Yeah, so thanks for that. When I read through the materials, and I do wish that we had had this in committee before we saw the red lines and were asked to vote on it. But we are trying to act quickly, and so I agree with all that. I want to get it done. But the one thing that popped out to me was the explicit reference to 2 off-street parking spaces for the 6,000 plus square foot lots. And I think that's in response to the exact house or the bill language, which says you should do no more than this. But I do feel like it's actually creating additional barriers, and given that we can select something from a policy perspective that is less than the minimum or the maximum they're required, I would propose that we switch that from 2 to 1 for all, 1 parking space required, knowing that we're gonna take the next 2 months to talk about the impacts and do an assessment of that. So I would prefer to start out at where we're not raising the bar, we're actually either keeping it standard or lowering the bar, because currently it's 3 for the ADU in the house. The house requires at least 2. Why acquire another two for anything over 6,000? So for me, I'm 100% on board. Let's change 2 to 1, and then have the staff do this assessment. If they come back and tell us that's not going to work for these reasons, then we analyze it at that point.
If I may, that would make me feel significantly more comfortable, because I understand that staff may not want that, and so this code will be opened up again. And that would make me feel very comfortable.
Council, let's treat this as a proposed amendment maybe and discuss this.
10-4.
Lowering the parking requirement from 2 to 1 off-street for an ADU.
Hear you. I'm with everyone. I want to get this passed as quickly as possible, but doesn't going from 2 to 1 put us in tension with our comp plan as it is written now? I thought there was an issue with that, and that's why we were leaving it at 2.
The comp plan issue that we identified was with the owner occupancy requirement. We have a specific goal in the
is
comp
that it?
plan.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
So our code now requires 3,
Yeah.
as Councilmember Proxman said.
Got it.
For
Okay.
ADUs. Yeah, so the discussion in the proposed amendment is to
Yeah.
2, and the amendment to our red lines is to 1.
And I probably did not articulate that well enough. I think that would ensure that we open up the code again, and we make sure that we make the amendments that we want, and I would really appreciate that. So thank you for the suggestion, and I would be in full support of that amendment.
Let's be clear that we're gonna open it up either way.
Yeah,
This thing is gonna be open for 6 months, but let's just start out by not increasing barriers.
Thoughts from council?
I just would like to know staff's thoughts on that. Is that, we're good there, or?
You know, parking really is very much a policy decision for council to make. We would anticipate as part of the parking discussion, and we talked about a little bit about this earlier today, that council may recall that I think it was around 2008, the city changed the right-of-way widths and the required amount of pavement for new developments. They made it a little bit lower because all of the parking required from the homes was shifted off-street. It was required to be on-site. And so we'd anticipate that would be part of the future policy discussion. But no, absolutely not. And to sort of Councilmember Vanderstoep's comment, we are here to write what you want us to write. And parking is definitely a policy decision to be made by City Council. We're here to support that.
Because this is gonna be law immediately. I want to be crystal clear as to the amendment of the text, and the way I'm tracking it is you are considering proposal to amend Section 3, 1773, 110 subsection B4 from 2 to 1?
Correct.
Okay.
Does everyone understand that? Council understand that? We're proposing that as an amendment, so just as Kevin stated it, that will be the proposed amendment.
So moved.
No, that's fine, it can be moved.
Wait,
It can
I
be-
thought that's what I
yeah.
was supposed to do.
You can discuss it after the motion's
Yeah,
over.
you put it on the
Right.
table and then you talk about it.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify what we're talking about, so there's.
Seconded.
Okay.
Oh, and you're done.
Now we get to
Oh my
discuss.
No, that's the process.
It hasn't happened yet.
Sorry.
So the amended motion is on the table and it open for discussion. Council, you want to discuss this? Who has thoughts?
We had a situation come up earlier in the night. Is this gonna slow it down at all? For them to be able to do possibly their project on the ADU?
And you know, I'm not personally familiar with your project, but my understanding is one of the barriers was because the city has a definition for accessory building that includes saying that things like accessory structures have to be subordinate, they have to
Yeah,
appear
right,
subordinate.
there was a
right.
height that.
Yeah,
that was more-
exactly,
okay.
exactly, yeah.
Go ahead.
So this is saying
Park.
you get to build it, and instead of having 2 parking spaces on your lot, you only have to have 1 space. So there's less room for cars on your lot and more room for housing. Is that-
One,
But
one
the principal
parking
unit.
spot.
Hold on.
I'm gonna, yeah, let me do, you got all that, you already know. I wanna know is 1 parking spot for the ADU plus 2 for, the residential house.
Yeah, there's still the requirements for the primary residence.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and so we're only dealing with just the ADU.
Correct. This draft does not contemplate opening up the parking code as of yet. It's just updates to address House Bill 1337.
Okay. Cause I just don't wanna see 1 parking lot, or 1 parking spot for the whole lot.
Oh, understood, okay.
And the only is, the thing I was gonna say is principal unit, 4 parking spots. Principal unit, so the house, 4 parking spots. That's what we have. So if they are going to apply, or, sorry, point, somebody is to apply, they will have 4 parking spots, and then the ADU that we're talking about is changing the requirement from 1 additional instead of the 2 additional. But there will be 4 parking spots.
For the principal.
Yes,
And
and 5 total.
Instead of 6.
so then take that one more, we can do up to 2 ADUs, so you would have 2 parking spots, correct?
Yes.
All right, I can do math.
Yeah, I wouldn't
better
have a
than me
problem
this
with that.
evening.
I just don't, my deal in parking on lawns and all that, so.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just, yeah.
Once this is adopted, it's going to be published on your website pretty quickly, I imagine. I mean, we can't codify it. The state can't even codify the actual law that we're reacting to that quickly. But it'll be published on your website. People will be able to look at it. The development community can look at it. There will be a public hearing within 60 days. And you'll have input to look at all the consequences and things, because we're going pretty quick. And you'll have an opportunity then at that hearing to, and before, during committee, to look, is this achieving the goals that you stated in your recitals of having to mitigate the affordable housing stock? I had a typo in my memo, I said stop, it was supposed to be stock, by the way.
I appreciate everybody's discussion. Thank you for dealing with me. I am sorry. But once again, thank you.
It's important.
Are you good, Kevin? We've got it.
I just wanted to make it the legislative record clear as to the text change, so we can defend that when we pass the ordinance.
Same thing when we were dealing with marijuana. The state wouldn't tell us exactly what to do, so that we had to put a moratorium down and.
We did
were
an interim
quick.
regulation for years, and we changed that regulation
Oh, yeah.
consistently to address with unanticipated impacts.
Yep.
Once you look at law and see how it runs and look closer, things are gonna pop out, and you're gonna have to be flexible. That's the way it is.
Is that what you were referring to when you said parking on grass?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, good call.
We're gonna have to look into that.
This is what happens, Peter, when you run a fun meeting.
It gets a little bit crazy at about 10. Okay, well, I want to thank Jeremy Wright from Cumberland Construction, also the Waltons, and everyone for their input here. I don't know if you caught during community comments, they said they came to Mayor Donovan and then the law changed, or something along those lines. I just want to clarify the path that went forward. A, this is not a dictatorship, and B, this is so not me. This is a massive effort. First of all, quick story. Back in December, at a meeting with a state legislator who challenged me to adopt some of this incoming legislation early. That's in the back of my mind when the Waltons came to me to talk about their situation. Concurrently, I think there were some council members who were way ahead of me on this process, and when I brought it up to council, said it's about time you got on board, and then took it to staff. Kevin did an awesome job of being creative. And then staff time is necessary to make things like this happen. They don't just happen easily. So thank you, Stacy, and your staff as well.
Thank you to Senior Planner Rebecca Lowell as well, and just for the incredible work the team has done. I appreciate council considering this and giving me the time this evening. We have other ideas for other early adoption things that
More
we
to
don't have to
come.
discuss tonight, but.
More to come. Right now, we have an amended ordinance on the table, and it's been moved and seconded. And I would just ask council, all those in favor of approving that amended ordinance, please signify.
May I clarify,
Yes,
sir?
please.
This is a vote on the amendment and a vote on the ordinance. Is that how you wanted to handle it? Is that two votes? Or is it as simple as, no, let's change this word?
Robert's rules.
I am very happy we have never adopted Robert's Rules of Order, so I'm not a parliamentarian. As long as your legislative intent is crystal clear, a court won't second guess what that intent is.
And so it's,
If the
why-
amended
for
ordinance
that
as
reason,
amended.
I've reiterated it a couple of times. What we're voting on is the amendment as Kevin stated it earlier, to go down to the one space. And unless there's council objection, I would just say, let's do it. Let's vote on.
We're
the
just,
motion.
we're just waiting on you to say it.
No, we're not. Another question.
Yeah, so, I'm curious, just as a factual question here, so we have, I'll just pick on lot coverage limits. For a lot, there's a certain max coverage. If someone proposed an ADU, would they have to, with that ADU, follow the lot coverage limit as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the lot coverage limitation would apply.
So this isn't overriding other things in our code. This is a piece of it.
If it's an existing structure that's being remodeled into an accessory dwelling unit, it does not have to comply, if I
Correct.
am correct.
Yep, you're absolutely correct, and the State House bill, it absolutely was written to anticipate that, so that you're not getting sort of more non-conforming regulations put on you, if you will, if you're looking to convert an existing structure that already has impervious surface, already is impacting.
So we'll get into some more of those details in the next year. Thank you for that
Can't
last
wait.
question from me.
Yes, absolutely. No.
Yeah, no.
All those in favor of the amended ordinance, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No. Oh, sorry. Just kidding.
I think we have a 7-0. Motion passes. Ordinance passes. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Council, thank you for.
Thanks, Peter. Well, you gotta get-
That is the end of our city council agenda for March 13th, 2024. For item 7, I'll ask the city attorney, is there a need for an executive session this evening?
Oh, please.
No.
Thank you.
Yes. With dramatic pause. And with that, this Mount Vernon City Council meeting will adjourn at 9:56 p.m.
This might be the latest without going in budget.